James from Karger Publishers. This is my colleague, Julia Sussner. And we're very glad that you decided to spend the next hour with us to dive deep into this particular area of omni-channel that strategy and engagement that we've actually heard a fair amount of in the first day yesterday. It's quite a lot about omni-channel. In this workshop, we're hoping to actually take more of a deeper dive into omni-channel and focus on the format within omni-channel and the critical role that plays in your engagement strategy.
And I would like to start dissecting because that leads us to thinking about formats. We know omni is a Latin word, it means all. And channel is a way of interaction between the parties, but it's also describing a route which information takes between one party to another. If you think about it, maybe you realize something is missing. You need a vessel to transport the information. And the vessel for it is basically a format. So if you think about messaging apps, probably everybody of you uses messaging app, Telegram or WhatsApp. It's a channel to communicate, but you have many different formats available. You can send text message, audio message, long audio messages, video, photos, and you can combine those. And depending in which situation you are, you might choose one or the other. And that leads us to thinking about learning patterns. Because everybody of you has very individual preferences how to process information. So there are persons who would like to read and write. And when you go to school, you learn also to focus on reading. Then we have visual types, people who like to listen. Auditory types, the communicative type, I'm probably one of those since I have two brothers. And very important also kinesthetic type. Kinesthetic is experience-based learning. These are the people that need to experience or do something themselves to understand it. And based on that, you will choose different formats. Text is clear, for the visual, you have the video, audio. Communicative, this is exchange. It's very important because it also relates to peer-to-peer exchange, of course. Very important in medical, scientific communication, and of course, experience. And then you try to identify, and of course that's what we do and what we did, try to identify which is like the superior format. Is there one format that is maybe better than the others? Because what you will realize is it's highly individual. So if you start a discussion of how much engagement does audio provide, or is the retention rate, the rate to memorize, better if you have a video or if you read it, you could discuss about that endlessly, and that's when we realized it's highly individual. We did that for audio because audio is a very, very interesting format. It's the only format that allows multitasking actually. But you get, for example, distracted easily. So that's why retention rate low. But there are people who say, I don't get distracted. For me, that's a format to go for.
To make an omelet. In fact, the results that we found, we had a pretty good sample size. You can see video, which I was like, oh, video is certainly going to be the one that's going to be the most popular format if you wanted to run an omelet. In fact, it was the second most popular. The most popular was actually reading a recipe, something that we taught. And the least popular happened to be podcasts. It was part of the reasons that Julia mentioned earlier. People get distracted if you really focus on making an omelet. You tend to the matter at hand. Very interesting feedback that we got from this particular survey, from, again, internally from Karger. You can see the reading, the paces defined by myself. That was a really popular one.
The first point is what we elaborated is the preferences are highly individual. And what you see here is a very busy HCP. Some of them have 13 hours working days, but they would like to stay up to date. And that's exactly the problem. So maybe they have a preference, they would like to read, they are simply not able to do it. So if you put context around that, you realize that people, they switch their preferences. And it really depends on the moment in the day where they are in. So if they hear something very interesting, they don't have time, maybe they look for a podcast they can listen to. So it's highly individual and it changes according to the situation the person is in. But it would be also interesting to hear what these authors think and what they have, what has driven them to publish their article. So that's basically the strategy, a combination of scientific communication, communication extension, and communication enhancement. Because what we did is, first of all, produced various formats, but we also put them into a tactical order. So it was not just like published as it was ready, but we were really discussing which format makes sense at which time to be pushed out to the audience. But that's not even the end of the story, because we also had a dedicated landing page for that. All the formats were on that, and that is like the last step, our perspective, that needs to be taken if you communicate scientific content, drive traffic to the page on purpose. Don't wait until people find you in this magnitude of information on the internet. So actually there are 5 key takeaways for you, which I would like to summarize. First of all, context plays a role, highly individual, learning patterns, and tactical order is relevant, providing multiple formats at the same time for self-determined learning or processing, and talk about what you do, campaigns, in addition to drive traffic.